The Red Mire, a sci-fi story. Part 1. The shuttle was already dying when it hit the mire. Its hull screamed as the red sludge surged up around it, acidic foam eating into the plating with a sound like frying meat. The impact threw Cade sideways across the cabin, slamming him into a console that sparked and spat molten fragments. The world became a blur of alarms, ruptured vents, and the stench of burning polymer. Out! 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 Lieutenant Mara Vance shouted, her voice raw over the roar of decompression. She was already forcing the emergency hatch, her gloves hissing where droplets of the mire touched them. The shuttle lurched again, sinking. The red swamp welcomed it like a hungry mouth. Cade staggered to his feet, boots slipping on the slanted floor. The acidic mire was already seeping through the ruptured hull, eating channels through the metal. The floor buckled. A support beam snapped with a gunshot crack. Move! Mara grabbed him by the collar and shoved him toward the hatch. The whole frame's dissolving. Cade didn't argue. He could feel the heat through his suit. The mire wasn't just corrosive. It was alive, bubbling with a slow, pulsing rhythm like a heartbeat. Outside, the world was a nightmare of red. A vast expanse of viscous sludge stretched in every direction, broken only by floating islands of fungal mats, thick, spongy platforms of interwoven mycelium, some the size of a room, others barely large enough for a single person. They drifted slowly, carried by unseen currents beneath the surface. The air shimmered with spores. Cade's visor autopolarized, filtering out the worst of the airborne haze. His suit's toxin alarms screamed anyway. Toxic concentration. Critical. Airborne pathogens detected. Respiratory integrity compromised. He slapped the alert away. Mara was already leaping from the sinking shuttle onto the nearest fungal mat. It sagged under her weight but held. She turned back, reaching out. Jump! Cade didn't hesitate. The shuttle groaned behind him, sinking deeper, the red mire climbing its sides like a rising tide of blood. He sprinted the last 2 steps and hurled himself forward. The fungal mat caught him with a wet, spongy bounce. It smelled like rot and vinegar. Behind them, the shuttle's nose dipped under the surface. The red sludge surged over it, dissolving the metal in seconds. The craft vanished with a final belch of bubbles. Silence followed, thick, oppressive, broken only by the distant sloshing of the mire. Mara exhaled shakily. Roll call. Who's alive? A figure on a neighboring fungal island raised a hand. Dr. Elian Rourke, the team's biologist, his visor smeared with red droplets. Alive. Suit integrity at 60%. Another voice came from behind a cluster of fungal stalks. Pilot Jessa Hale limping, clutching her side. I'm here. Hull breach threw me into the bulkhead. Cade scanned the drifting mats. Where's Tolan? A faint shout answered from farther away. A small mat drifting rapidly from the others, carried by a current beneath the mire. Here. I'm slipping. Tolan's mat tilted dangerously, one edge dipping toward the sludge. He scrambled to stay centered, arms pinwheeling. Mara cursed. We need to regroup before the currents separate us. The fungal islands drifted unpredictably, bumping and sliding past each other. Some collided and fused. Others tore apart into smaller pieces. The red mire beneath them pulsed, as if breathing. Cade crouched, testing the mat beneath his boots. It flexed like muscle. Can these things hold together long enough to cross? He asked. Rourke answered grimly. If the acidity doesn't eat through them first. A fresh wave of spores drifted past, glittering like red snow. The first crossing. Mara pointed to a cluster of mats drifting closer together. We hop. One at a time. Keep your weight centered. Don't touch the mire. Jessa snorted. Wasn't planning to go for a swim. The first jump was easy, a short gap, barely a meter. The fungal mats squished underfoot, releasing puffs of spores with every step. Cade's suit filters strained audibly. The second jump was wider. The third was worse. The mat they aimed for was half submerged, its edges dissolving. Mara tested it with her boot. It'll hold for a few seconds. Move fast. They leapt in sequence, each landing sending ripples through the mat. Cade felt it sag beneath him, the red mire licking at the edges. He pushed off immediately, landing on the next island with a grunt. Tolan's voice echoed faintly. Hurry! His mat was drifting farther away. Rourke pointed. There, that one's big enough to hold all of us. A massive fungal platform loomed ahead, easily 10 meters across, covered in thick stalks that swayed like reeds. Its surface was mottled with patches of dark red and sickly yellow. They made for it. The final jump was the longest yet. Mara went first, landing in a crouch. Jessa followed, nearly slipping but catching herself on a stalk. Rourke made it with a clumsy scramble. Cade braced himself, sprinted, and leapt. He landed hard, rolling to absorb the impact. The mat shuddered under the combined weight of the group but held. Mara turned toward Tolan's drifting island. We need to get him before he... She stopped. Tolan was coughing violently, doubled over on his tiny mat. A cloud of red spores surrounded him, thicker than the rest of the haze. Rourke's voice tightened. His suit's compromised. Cade's stomach dropped. How bad? Bad. Tolan looked up, visor cracked, eyes wide with panic. I breathed some in, I think. He coughed again, a wet, ragged sound. Mara clenched her jaw. We get him. Now. The infection. The fungal mats shifted beneath them as they moved, the entire swamp in constant motion. The red mire sloshed and bubbled, sending waves that rocked the platforms. They hopped toward Tolan, but his mat was drifting faster now, caught in a stronger current. Jump! Mara shouted. Tolan tried, but his legs buckled. He collapsed to his knees, clutching his chest. Rourke hissed. The spores are acting fast. Cade felt a chill. What do they do? Rourke didn't answer immediately. His silence was worse than any explanation. Finally, they're parasitic, airborne, designed to colonize organic tissue. Designed, Jessa echoed. Rourke didn't elaborate. Tolan's mat bumped against a larger one, giving them a chance. Mara leapt first, landing beside him. She grabbed his arm, hauling him upright. His visor was fogging from the inside. Mara, he rasped. Don't touch me. Shut up, she snapped. You're not dying out here. Cade and Jessa landed beside them. Rourke hesitated, then followed. Tolan's breathing was ragged. His suit alarms blared continuously. Biological contamination. Internal. Spread rate. Accelerating. Cade swallowed hard. We need to get him to stable ground. Mara nodded. Back to the big mat. Move. They half-carried, half-dragged Tolan across the drifting islands. His legs barely worked. His skin beneath the visor was turning pale, mottled with faint red lines that pulsed like veins filled with glowing embers. Rourke stared at the pattern, horrified. It's integrating with his circulatory system. Jessa grimaced. Meaning he's becoming a host. Tolan groaned, clutching his chest. Please, don't let me fall in. You won't, Mara said fiercely. But Cade saw the truth in Rourke's eyes. Tolan wasn't going to make it. The big mat. They reached the massive fungal platform again, its surface rising and falling gently like a living lung. Mara laid Tolan down carefully. He curled on his side, trembling. Rourke knelt beside him, scanning with his handheld analyzer. The device beeped erratically. The spores are replicating inside him, he said. Fast. Too fast. Cade looked around the swamp. Is there any way to treat it? Rourke hesitated. Maybe, if we had a sterile environment, equipment, antitoxins. But here, he gestured to the red haze, the bubbling mire, the drifting fungal islands. We're in the worst possible place. Tolan coughed again, a spray of red mist hitting the inside of his visor. Jessa flinched. We can't take him with us if he's contagious. Mara rounded on her. We're not leaving him. He's infected. Jessa shot back. We don't know what that means for us. Cade stepped between them. Arguing won't help. Rourke stood slowly. We need to make a decision. Soon? Tolan's voice was barely a whisper. Please, don't let me turn into whatever this is. Mara knelt beside him, gripping his hand through the suit. We're going to help you. But Cade saw her eyes. She didn't believe her own words. The mire stirs. A deep rumble vibrated through the fungal mat. Cade froze. What was that? Rourke's face went pale. The mire's tides. They're shifting. The red sludge around them began to churn, forming slow, spiraling vortices. The fungal mats drifted faster, colliding and tearing apart. The air thickened with spores. Jessa pointed. Look! Something massive moved beneath the surface. A dark shape gliding through the red depths, stirring waves that rocked the platforms. Cade's heart hammered. What the hell is that? Rourke swallowed. A predator? Or a scavenger? Hard to tell in ecosystems like this. The shape passed beneath them, the mat trembling as if brushed by a giant hand. Tolan whimpered. Don't let it take me. Mara tightened her grip on his shoulder. It won't. But the shape circled back. Closer. The red mire bulged upward, forming a mound that rose and split open like a blister. A mass of tendrils emerged, long, rope-like appendages made of fused fungal fibers, dripping with acidic slime. They reached toward the mat. Jessa screamed. Move! The tendrils lashed out, striking the edge of the platform. The fungal mat sizzled where they touched, dissolving rapidly. Cade grabbed Tolan under the arms. We have to go! Mara hesitated, just for a heartbeat, then nodded. Lift him! They dragged Tolan toward the far edge of the mat as the tendrils tore chunks from behind them. The entire platform tilted, sinking slightly. Rourke pointed to a cluster of smaller mats drifting together. There! Jump! They leapt, one by one, landing on the smaller islands. The big mat behind them collapsed into the mire, dissolving in seconds. The tendrils sank back beneath the surface. The predator vanished. Silence returned. But Tolan was worse. Much worse. The choice. They regrouped on a stable cluster of mats. Tolan lay motionless except for shallow, rapid breaths. The red lines beneath his skin had spread across his neck and jaw, branching like fungal roots. Rourke scanned him again. The device emitted a shrill alarm. The spores have reached his brain. Mara shook her head. No. No, there has to be something. There isn't, Rourke said quietly. He's minutes away from losing consciousness. After that, the parasite will take over. Jessa backed away. We can't let him turn into one of those things. Cade looked at Tolan, at the fear in his eyes, the way he clung to consciousness. He knew what Tolan wanted. He also knew what Mara wanted. And the two were not the same. Tolan's voice was barely audible. Please, don't let me hurt you. Mara's jaw trembled. We're not killing him. Rourke spoke softly. If we don't, he'll kill us. The fungal mats drifted, the red mire bubbling around them, the air thick with spores. Time was running out. Cade closed his eyes. The decision was coming, and there was no right answer. Part 2. Tolan's breathing hitched. Not the ragged, panicked gasps from before. This was different. Slower. Deeper. As if something inside him was learning how to breathe for him. Cade felt the hairs on his neck rise. Rourke stepped back. It's starting. Mara knelt beside Tolan, refusing to move. He's still conscious. Barely, Rourke said. And not for long. The red lines beneath Tolan's skin pulsed in a steady rhythm now, synchronized with the faint throb of the mire around them. The fungal mats drifted in slow spirals, as if responding to the same unseen heartbeat. Jessa's voice trembled. We need to get off this cluster. If he turns? He's not turning, Mara snapped, but Tolan's fingers twitched. Not randomly, purposefully. They curled and uncurled, testing the strength of his grip. Cade swallowed. Mara, look at him. She did, and for the first time her resolve cracked. The first change. Tolan's visor fogged completely, then cleared in a sudden burst of heat. A thin crack spread across the glass, widening with a soft, brittle sound. Rourke hissed. His internal temperature is spiking. The spores are metabolizing his tissue. Tolan's voice came out warped, as if two people were speaking through the same throat. Mara, please. She leaned closer. I'm here. Don't let me hurt. His body convulsed. The fungal mats beneath him rippled, reacting to the movement. The red mire around the cluster bubbled more violently, as if sensing prey. Jessa backed away. We have to go. Now. Mara didn't move. Cade grabbed her shoulder. If we stay, we die. She jerked free. I'm not abandoning him. Tolan's spine arched, lifting him off the mat. His limbs stiffened, then relaxed in a slow, unnatural wave. The red lines beneath his skin brightened, glowing faintly. Rourke whispered, horrified. It's integrating with his nervous system. Cade stared. Meaning he's not Tolan anymore. Tolan's head snapped toward them. His eyes were wrong. The pupils had dissolved into a swirling red haze. He inhaled sharply, a wet, sucking sound, and the fungal mats around him pulsed in response. Jessa screamed. He's controlling them. The mats shifted, tilting toward Tolan as if drawn by gravity. Mara finally stood, but too late. Tolan, or the thing wearing him, rose to his feet. The first pursuit. The fungal mats lurched. Cade stumbled as the platform beneath him tilted sharply, sliding toward Tolan's position. The red mire surged up the sides, splashing dangerously close to his boots. Jump! Rourke shouted. They leapt to the next mat as their previous one dissolved into the mire. The entire swamp seemed to be moving now, the mats drifting in a coordinated spiral around Tolan. He stood at the center, swaying slightly, head tilted as if listening to something only he could hear. Mara stared at him, frozen. Cade grabbed her arm. Move! She didn't resist this time. They hopped across a chain of smaller mats, each one wobbling under their weight. Behind them, Tolan stepped forward, and the mats shifted to carry him, forming a path beneath his feet. Jessa cursed. He's using the network. The whole swamp is one organism. Rourke nodded grimly. And he's part of it now. Tolan raised a hand. The fungal mats ahead of the group suddenly split apart, creating a widening gap. Cade skidded to a halt. He's cutting us off. Mara scanned the drifting platforms. There, that one. A large mat drifted toward them, but it was dissolving at the edges, eaten by the rising tide of red sludge. Jessa shook her head. It won't hold. It doesn't have to, Mara said. Just long enough. They jumped. The mat sagged dangerously, sinking several centimeters into the mire. Acidic foam splashed over the edges, eating into the fungal fibers. Cade felt the heat through his boots. Move! He shouted. They sprinted across the dissolving platform and leapt to the next one. Behind them, the mat collapsed entirely, sinking beneath the surface. Tolan stepped onto the nearest mat, and it rose to meet him. He was gaining. The fracture. They reached a cluster of mats that had fused into a larger platform. It was stable, for now, but surrounded by swirling currents of red sludge. Mara stopped, chest heaving. We can't keep running. Rourke shook his head. We don't have a choice. Jessa pointed. He's coming. Tolan approached slowly, each step synchronized with the pulsing of the mire. The fungal mats parted for him, forming a path. His voice carried across the swamp, distorted, layered, wrong. Mara! She flinched. Stay. With me. Cade stepped in front of her. He's not Tolan. Tolan tilted his head. Cade! The red haze in his eyes swirled faster. You should not resist. The mats beneath their feet trembled. Rourke's voice was barely audible. He's trying to pull us in. Jessa grabbed Mara's arm. We need to go. Now. Mara didn't move. Her voice cracked. Tolan. If you can hear me, fight it. Tolan's body twitched. For a moment, just a moment, his expression changed. The red haze dimmed. His mouth opened, forming a single word. Run. Then the haze flared again, and he lunged. The break. Cade shoved Mara aside as Tolan leapt onto their platform. The fungal mat buckled under the impact, sinking several centimeters. Acidic foam splashed over the edges. Tolan moved with unnatural speed, limbs jerking in sharp, insect-like motions. His fingers elongated, the skin splitting to reveal fibrous tendrils beneath. Jessa fired her flare pistol, a desperate, useless gesture, but the flare bounced off Tolan's suit and fizzled into the mire. Rourke grabbed a fungal stalk and swung it like a club. It snapped instantly. Tolan lunged at him. Cade tackled Rourke out of the way, and Tolan's tendrils slashed through empty air. The mat beneath them dissolved where the tendrils touched. Mara stepped forward. Tolan! He froze. Just for a heartbeat. Mara raised her hands slowly. I know you're still in there. The red haze flickered. Cade whispered, Mara, don't. She took another step. Tolan. I'm not leaving you. Tolan's body convulsed violently. Then he screamed. Not a human scream. A sound like tearing metal and rushing air and the groan of the mire itself. The fungal mats around them surged upward, forming tendrils that wrapped around the platform, pulling it toward the red sludge. Rourke shouted, He's dragging us under. Jessa grabbed Mara. We have to go. Mara resisted, then broke. She turned away and ran. The last crossing. The mats ahead were smaller, drifting rapidly. The currents were chaotic now, swirling in violent spirals. The air was thick with spores, reducing visibility to a red haze. Cade led the way, leaping from mat to mat. Each one sagged dangerously, some dissolving the moment they pushed off. Behind them, Tolan followed, not running, but gliding, carried by the mats that rose to meet him. Rourke gasped for breath. He's accelerating. Jessa pointed to a massive fungal island in the distance, larger than any they'd seen, covered in towering stalks and thick, pulsing mycelium. There. That's our only chance. Mara nodded. Go! They sprinted across the drifting mats, the gaps widening, the platform sinking. The red mire surged around them, forming waves that splashed acidic foam. Cade reached the final jump, a 3-meter gap to the massive island. He leapt, landed, turned. Mara! Jump! She did. Jessa followed. Rourke stumbled, slipped, and Cade grabbed his arm, hauling him onto the island. They collapsed, gasping. Then the island shuddered. Mara looked up. No, no, no. The entire island was rising. Not floating. Rising. A massive shape emerged beneath it, a colossal fungal organism, lifting the island on its back like a shell. Tendrils thicker than tree trunks writhed beneath the surface. Jessa whispered, horrified. It's alive. Rourke nodded slowly. It's the core, the central node of the entire mire. Cade's blood ran cold. And we're standing on it. Tolan stepped onto the final mat before the island. He looked up at them and smiled. The final moral fracture. The island tilted as the core organism shifted beneath them. Massive tendrils rose from the mire, reaching toward the group. Rourke backed away. We can't fight this. Jessa shook her head. We can't outrun it. Mara stared at Tolan, at the thing he had become. Her voice was barely a whisper. We can't save him. Cade placed a hand on her shoulder. We never could. Tolan stepped onto the island. The tendrils surged upward. Cade grabbed Mara and pulled her back as a tendril slammed into the ground where she had stood. The impact sent shockwaves through the island. Rourke shouted, There, the far edge. A narrow mat. It's drifting away. Jessa squinted. It's too far. It won't be for long, Rourke said. The currents are pulling it toward us. Cade looked at Mara. This is it. She nodded slowly, then looked at Tolan. He stood perfectly still, tendrils writhing around him like a crown. Mara, he said, or the parasite said through him. Stay. She shook her head. I'm sorry. Tolan stepped forward. The island lurched. The narrow mat drifted closer. Cade shouted, "Jump!" They ran, leapt, landed on the narrow mat as the island behind them erupted in a mass of tendrils and red sludge. Tolan reached for them, but the mat drifted away, carried by a sudden surge in the currents. Mara watched him recede into the red haze. Her voice broke. Tolan! Cade put an arm around her. The mat drifted into the distance, away from the core, away from the infection, away from the nightmare. But the red mire stretched endlessly ahead, and the spores still filled the air. Their survival was not guaranteed, not even close. But for now, they were alive. This is the end of the sci-fi story, The Red Mire. Leave a like if you enjoyed the story, and subscribe for more sci-fi stories. Thanks for listening.